This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schaumler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 624. Welcome in. I hope you had an incredible weekend. Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope you had a great one. It is Tuesday, December 26th. Yesterday was Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, happy holidays. Whatever the right thing is to say for you, I love you. Hope you had a great weekend. It was a really interesting weekend of football. We'll talk about it in a moment. But before we do anything, we do have to acknowledge today's sponsor. Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks allows you to make an entry based on player projections, and in 60 seconds, you can enter something like Joe Flacco throwing for over 250 yards, Amari Cooper having more than 100 yards receiving, and maybe Brock Purdy throwing more than 2 interceptions. That would never happen, right? Who could imagine that? If you did it this week, you would have won. If your picks are right, you can win money. Making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. Prize Picks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay, and they have weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts. For example, there's a weekly event called Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. So put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. All right, let's jump in. The game of the weekend was supposed to be the San Francisco 49ers playing the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas Day. I thought we were going to get a Christmas gift from the football gods. Monday Night Football, ESPN, 2 teams with the best record in football. And instead of a great game, we got kind of a beatdown. I'm not going to lie. I was surprised. I was disappointed. The Ravens beat the 49ers 33-19. They were up 33-12 in the fourth quarter at one point, like early on in the fourth quarter. And the Ravens defense had 5 interceptions on the day. Brock Purdy threw 4 of them. Sam Darnold threw an interception in the fourth quarter. Although let's defend Sam Darnold's honor here. Sam Darnold's interception was tough. It was 4th and goal on the 17-yard line with a minute left to play. You got to get rid of the football. You're trying to make a play. I don't know. You can't really hate on Sam Darnold. I know if you're going to do it, there's lots of reasons. Probably not this interception, okay? Can we agree on that? It was a massive, massive win for the Ravens. Like, oh my goodness, they look dominant and really, really good. Ironically, the Ravens were viewed actually as an underdog coming into this game. So for them to come in and dominate was surprising. And I enjoyed, despite I was watching with my stepfather. He's a massive 49ers fan. He was very sad from the beginning, like interception after interception after interception, like Brock Purdy really struggling. And he was sad. I enjoyed the game because I like Lamar Jackson. I like watching the Ravens win. But basically, the Ravens defense removed Brock Purdy from the MVP race, in my opinion. I don't know how you can have 4 interceptions, the awful day he did, no touchdowns. That's a really tough thing to overlook when you're kind of splitting hairs for the MVP race right now. The 4 interceptions, 2 of them were, I think, kind of bad luck. One got tipped at the line of scrimmage right back up in the air. It's like that, you can't really do much about that. A lot of them were tipped up in the air, like deflected in some way. To me, 2 of the interceptions very clearly were Brock Purdy's fault, where he was extending a play outside of the pocket, holding on to the ball too long, trying to do too much. It's a problem. They lead to interceptions. That cannot happen. And all 4 interceptions, I got to say, were really good plays by the defense. Sometimes the defense makes a really good play. Sometimes the quarterback leaves the door open for a big play to happen, but all of them were the defense really capitalizing, tipping the ball in the air, going after the football. I think there's a very good chance we see the Ravens play the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Like, they are, I think the best team in the NFC is still the 49ers, and I do think the best team in the AFC is currently the Baltimore Ravens. If they work out, they could be the #1 seeds and then play each other in the Super Bowl. But the Ravens got round 1, which is really interesting. Remember, by the way, the Ravens played the 49ers a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl, where Ray Lewis and Joe Flacco got their Super Bowl win together. The power went out at halftime in New Orleans. It was Jim Harbaugh against John Harbaugh. Colin Kaepernick was playing back in the day. I don't know, man. The Ravens got round one here. I thought the Ravens offense looked incredible on Sunday Night Football, or I guess Monday Night Football, because it's weird. Having Christmas at the end of a weekend was messed up my mind a little bit. The offense looked really good. The Ravens defense looked dominant and outstanding. I think right now, if you were to pick the number one team with the most likely shot at going to a Super Bowl, it's got to be the Baltimore Ravens. They dominated Detroit. They dominated the 49ers. They have just obliterated people, and they're playing really good football. And I don't know, man. The Ravens are... I think it would be so cool to see Lamar Jackson win a Super Bowl. I think that's got to be said. I don't know. Did anyone see the clip of Lamar Jackson after the game in the post-game press conference where a reporter introduced himself, said Mike Jones, and Lamar Jackson wanted to go, who? He really wanted to go, who? And he didn't. He waited, and then he just, after like 30 seconds of listening to the beginning of his question, he couldn't handle it. He goes, wait, Mike Jones? Like, he had to acknowledge it. And if you haven't seen that moment, you should go find it. So Lamar Jackson gets a big victory. To me, I still think the MVP should go to Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey, I mean, even in this game, had a long touchdown run. Like, he's awesome. Christian McCaffrey, to me, if he doesn't win the NFL MVP this year, it's going to be the point where I think for years we've been saying, why do we even have an MVP award if it just goes to quarterbacks every year? What's the point? There is no clear and obvious quarterback that should win the NFL MVP this year. If there is a quarterback, it should be Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. But to me, it's a non-quarterback year. Let's give it to Christian McCaffrey. Let's see another position other than quarterback win the NFL MVP this year. Brock Purdy, 4 interceptions. He removed himself from the MVP conversation. Let's give it to Christian McCaffrey. I think that's I think he is the NFL MVP. To me, like, I don't know. We'll see. We got 2 more weeks of football left to kind of see how things shake out. But to me right now, the NFL MVP has to be Christian McCaffrey, and anything else other than that feels like a mistake, in my opinion. Let's talk about Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, former Ravens quarterback, did it again. The Cleveland Browns beat the Houston Texans 36-22, and my goodness, Joe Flacco had another incredible football game. By the way, Joe Flacco and the Browns have won 3 games in a row. They beat Jacksonville, they beat the Bears, now they beat Houston. And Joe Flacco threw for a ton of yards. Again, he's 38 years old. He was 27 for 42 passing, had 368 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, yes. But Joe Flacco's killing it, man. It's such a cool story. Him coming out of left field, was sitting at home. Now he's a Browns starting quarterback. They're 10-5, leading them to a playoff appearance. They're still in contention for the number 1 seed in the AFC, which is unbelievable. And Browns receiver Amari Cooper in this game had 11 catches for 265 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a franchise record, the most receiving yards in Browns franchise history. Ridiculous. Browns are 10-5. To me, the Browns look like a Super Bowl contender. They're playing outstanding football. I am really hoping we get a rematch. It's not even because they haven't played. I guess they have played, but it's Joe Flacco has not played against the Baltimore Ravens with the Browns this year, right? They're in the same division. But remember, he came in way late in the year. I think it would be so exciting if the Cleveland Browns went on the road to the Baltimore Ravens to play them in a playoff game. Like, my mind would be broken. It would be so cool and so interesting. I want to see that happen. Joe Flacco against his old team. And the Browns are an absolutely insane story this year. Like, you have to acknowledge, I think the NFL Coach of the Year has to go to Kevin Stefanski, their head coach. They have played 4 different quarterbacks this year. They're on their 4th starting quarterback of the year. It was Deshaun Watson, then Dorian Thompson-Robinson, then P.J. Walker. Now it's Joe Flacco. Guys have gotten injured left and right. And to do what the Browns have done, they're 10-5. They're still in contention for the number 1 seed in the AFC with 2 weeks to go. To have a ton of injuries, they've got the most, I read this, they got the most salary cap space on the injured reserve of any team in the NFL. And they're still 10-5 and might win a playoff game and might go to the playoffs. And I mean, they're going to the playoffs, I guess. It's how high is their seed going to be? I don't know, man. It's incredible. I really, really think we have to collectively appreciate the Cleveland Browns this year. It's been unbelievable what they've done. And their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, has to be the coach of the year. By the way, Houston did not have their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, in this game. He's still recovering from a concussion. So what happened was Houston started quarterback Case Keenum, and then in the fourth quarter they switched to Davis Mills. Davis Mills came in and threw two touchdowns. I almost threw him under the bus. Case Keenum struggled. Davis Mills came in, did really well, led 2 touchdown drives in garbage time. But you got to wonder if this game had been closer. I guess, how do I say this? If CJ Stroud had played, would this game have been closer? I think probably. I think CJ Stroud, healthy in this football game, would have been more competitive than we saw, but the Browns won. They're dominating. The final 2 games of the year for the Cleveland Browns, they play the New York Jets. That's a good defense. And by the way, Joe Flacco's former team. Joe Flacco was Zach Wilson's backup in New York. And then they play at Cincinnati. Meaningful games where the Jets have a good defense. The Bengals are fighting really hard to stay in the playoff race. And these Cleveland Browns, man, I so badly want to see the Cleveland Browns play a playoff game in Baltimore. And you know what's crazy? The minute Deshaun Watson got pushed to the side, injured, he's out for the year, I went right back on the Browns. Oh, I love watching the Browns. It's fun. It's really crazy how much emotionally, like, when you don't hate the people on the field, it's really fun to root for an underdog team like the Cleveland Browns. It's awesome. I'm rooting for them. And, oh, man, I really can't say the 2 playoff games I want more than anything. I want the LA Rams on the road in Detroit, Matthew Stafford against his former team in Detroit, and I want Joe Flacco on the road against his former team in Baltimore. That would be, Joe Flacco against the quarterback who replaced him. And then, by the way, Lamar won an NFL MVP and it's been incredible. Oh, man, I want to see that so badly. Now, let's go back to Thursday Night Football. On Thursday Night Football, the Rams beat New Orleans 30-22. It was a massive win for the Rams, a must-win game for them. Right now, currently, the number 6 seed in the NFC is, in fact, the LA Rams. And if the playoffs started today, guess what we would get? We would get Rams on the road in Detroit for a playoff game. Oh, I want that so badly, man. It's incredible. I really can't say enough how unbelievable that would be. And to me, Sean McVay, the Rams head coach, he's not going to win Coach of the Year, but he should be considered for it. His name should be mentioned in that conversation because what Sean McVay has done with, Cooper Kupp out for a lot of the year, a ton of young players, Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, taking young guys, people. I had such low expectations for the Rams going into the year, and a lot of people did. They have surpassed every expectation put onto them. The Rams look like a playoff team. And Matthew Stafford, we saw Thursday. If you watch again Thursday Night Football, Matthew Stafford made more ridiculous. Every time you watch Matthew Stafford play football, he does an incredible thing. You're like, again, there's like 3 people alive who can make that throw. And he's 35 years old right now. Matthew Stafford the Rams quarterback looks like he could play at a high level for another 5 years. And if that happens, I think the Rams very quietly kind of reloaded this year, where the Rams had a lot of young talent. Remember, after that Super Bowl, the Rams were totally screwed. They lost all their coaches. Their salary cap was destroyed. They had to get rid of a lot of players. They lost everything. And they had to start completely over, basically. And so for Sean McVay to be leading the Rams back to where they are, their young guys are developing. They look like a playoff team this year. If Matthew Stafford keeps playing at a high level, 2 years from now, we could talk about the Rams again as a Super Bowl contender, which is wild and interesting. At some point, the 49ers are going to struggle with salary cap. Seattle doesn't appear to be dominating. I think the Rams could win their division again next year, the year after, probably 2 years from now. And the Rams, if they keep trending upward, could be building towards another Super Bowl, which is a crazy reality. Now, the Saints, by the way, are now 7-8, which is really, really disappointing. The New Orleans Saints, after losing on Thursday night, they're just underachieving. It's so sad. It's really got to fall on the coaching staff, in my opinion. They got a lot of talent on the roster in New Orleans, but they're third in their division behind Tampa and Atlanta, which is horrifying. So to me, I am, no disrespect to Dennis Allen, the Saints head coach, I am openly rooting for Dennis Allen to get fired. I want to see them hire an innovative offensive coach who can take Derek Carr, get the most out of him, and really, they've got good players in New Orleans. They've got terrible coaching, especially on the offensive side of the football. So to me, replace Dennis Allen, get an awesome young offensive head coach. I think Ben Johnson, you want to see, everyone's talking about Ben Johnson to the Chargers, and that's an exciting thought. And that's probably what's going to happen. I would rather see Bill Belichick go to the LA Chargers, coaching Justin Herbert in that defense, keep Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. And then what I really want to see is Ben Johnson go play with Derek Carr. Go coach Derek Carr. Derek Carr, I think, needs a coach to commit to him and love him. And what we've seen with Jared Goff and Ben Johnson is a really incredible story and a really cool connection where Jared Goff is playing some of the best football of his life. I wonder if Ben Johnson could get that out of Derek Carr in New Orleans. I think it's very possible he could. And to me, really, really interesting idea there. Could Derek Carr be revitalized by who is currently the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson? Now, there were two games on Saturday. First of all, Pittsburgh beat Cincinnati 34-11. Well done by the Steelers, by the way. Really awesome. It's looking more and more like the Steelers might actually avoid having a losing record. They're 8-7 right now, 2 games left. They win one of those 2 games, and they've got a 9-8 record, and that would make them have another winning year under Mike Tomlin. So as long as the Steelers don't lose the final 2 games of the year against Seattle and Baltimore, both on the road. By the way, tough games. At Seattle, at Baltimore. That's not, it's very possible we could see an 8-9 Steelers team. But right now they're 8-7 with a chance if they win one of their final 2 games, they're going to have a winning record on the year, which is really interesting. Now, in this game, Bengals quarterback, remember the Bengals lost to the Steelers. Bengals quarterback Jake Browning actually threw for a ton of yards. He was 28 for 42 passing at 335 yards. 1 touchdown pass. However, our favorite young backup quarterback, Jake Browning. Cool story, but this is why every time a young quarterback comes off the bench, does some good stuff for a little bit, I go, how long is this going to last? This might have been the end of the Jake Browning thing. Although I thought he played really well. He had 3 interceptions, though. And 3 interceptions that were... None of them were good. I thought the worst one is 3rd and 8. 3rd and 8 in the red zone. Jake Browning extending the play to the right side, out of the pocket. He should have thrown the ball away. Instead, he forces a throw into the end zone. It gets picked off. 3rd and 8 in the red zone. Throw the ball away. Live to see another down. Kick a field goal. Take 3 points. Little things like that. It finally caught up to Jake Browning. I wonder how he's going to play the rest of the year. Again, the Cincinnati Bengals, the next 2 games for them, they play some really, really tough games. They play the Bengals to end their year. They play at Kansas City, and then they host Cleveland. I don't know. The Bengals right now are 8-7. I'm not sure they're going to make a playoff game. They are in the mix, but it's looking more and more like if you can't even beat Pittsburgh, I don't know how you're going to go on the road against Patrick Mahomes and then beat a really good, really red-hot Cleveland Browns team. It'll be interesting at the end of the year for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, funny enough, I thought that we got a fun moment from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their quarterback, Mason Rudolph, had the best game of his life. And of course, a guy named Rudolph, right around Christmas time, it's a very Christmas-themed name, has the best game of his career. Mason Rudolph was 17 for 27 passing, had 290 yards, 0 turnovers on the day. I thought he was awesome. 2 touchdowns. George Pickens, the Steelers' young receiver, had 4 catches for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. And by the way, George Pickens is coming off a week where he had a ton of criticism for not blocking on a running play, saying he was trying to avoid an injury, trying to keep himself safe. I thought he responded really well to the criticism with a really good game, which is all you got to do. You get criticized in the media. All you got to do is the next week come out and dominate. And by the way, what we saw from George Pickens here, 4 catches, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, that is what I expected he would do all year. Now, we know the offense had problems. Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada, then Mitchell Trubisky's been the quarterback. It's been a roller coaster, but I'm telling you, I think I was right. Before the year started, I was so sure George Pickens was going to have an incredible year. He did not, by the way. Let's be clear. But this is his potential. I thought he was going to do this every week, and it's really frustrating because I think that with a great quarterback, like if Kirk Cousins came to Pittsburgh next year, we would see an unbelievable year from George Pickens, and instead we got what we got, which is disappointment. But I think George Pickens is a great player who needs help from a great quarterback and a better offensive coordinator. Also on Saturday, Buffalo beat the Chargers 24-22. Buffalo's won 3 in a row. Buffalo's won 3 games in a row. They beat Kansas City. They beat Dallas. Now they beat the LA Chargers. The last 5 games, to me, have been really impressive from the Buffalo Bills. They lost to Philly by 3. They demolished the Jets. They also, remember, beat Kansas City, Dallas, and now LA. Buffalo was once 5-5. They are now 9-6. They've really bounced back. Buffalo's doing everything they can to make it into a playoff game, and they look really capable. So I'm really interested to see, will the Bills get into a playoff game? It's looking more and more like they will. And then if they do, what's their potential? Because I thought going into the year we were entering the end of the Super Bowl window for the Buffalo Bills, but I thought the window was still open. And maybe we'll see. They had a rough start to the year. We will see if the Bills can win a lot of games down the stretch in the playoffs. But I got my eyes on the Buffalo Bills. They look really, really interesting. Also, by the way, shout out to LA Chargers. The LA Chargers are coming off of a rough couple weeks. Coach got fired. They got obliterated. I thought for them to come out, put up a good fight against Buffalo. They lost by 2 against a good Buffalo Bills team. That's a really good performance by them. I know they lost, and I know the Chargers are legendary for losing close games. I don't know how many fans they have left. I don't know how you're a Chargers fan today in 2023, heading into 2024. Who's left on the Chargers fan base. I have no idea. But certainly, they put up a really good fight and played really well on Saturday. Now, on Christmas Day, the Raiders beat Kansas City 20-14. It was a massive win for the Raiders' interim head coach, Antonio Pierce. The Raiders have now won 2 games in a row. They beat the Chargers 63-21. Now they've taken down Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Antonio Pierce is 4-3 as their head coach in Vegas, and I am in favor of Antonio Pierce staying on as a head coach next year for the Raiders. I don't know where they're headed as a franchise. They've got quarterback questions. They've got a GM problem. There's a lot of stuff up in the air in Vegas. I don't know that 5 years from now, Antonio Pierce should still be the head coach of the Raiders. I don't know, he's a guy to lead them to a Super Bowl. I've got a lot of questions about what Antonio Pierce can do. What I do know is that he's provided stability to the Raiders. So he may not be the right guy for the next 5 years in Vegas, but I think he's the right guy for next year. As they head into a challenging year with a lot of questions to answer on their roster, having a good leader who motivates people, that people like, really does matter. I would keep Antonio Pierce as the head coach of the Raiders going into next year. Also, after this game, watching Kansas City lose to the Raiders on Christmas Day, I think it's very fair to be skeptical of the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't feel like they're a Super Bowl team. The Chiefs are 9-6. They've got a lot of weaknesses that have shown all year. They're a defensive-led team. Their receiving core simply isn't good enough. And I just want to make it clear now so we can talk about it in January. I would be shocked, like absolutely shocked, if Kansas City won or even got to another Super Bowl this year. I think the AFC's got a lot of contenders. I think Buffalo right now looks more talented than Kansas City. I don't know. I really can't imagine a world where Kansas City repeats as Super Bowl champions for back-to-back years. I just do not see that happening for the Chiefs. They really need to make some moves this offseason, go get better receiving weapons for Patrick Mahomes. Also on Monday, Philly beat the Giants 33-25. I want to say this game was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Philly beat the Giants. The notable storyline to me is that Giants' young quarterback, Tommy DeVito, got benched. The Giants were down 20-3 at halftime, and what do they call him? The passing paisano, Tommy touchdown, Tommy Cutlets, whatever nickname you want to come up with. It feels like his 5 minutes of fame have kind of ended. He struggled. They brought in Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor actually brought the Giants back into the game. The game came down to the final play. The Giants had the ball on the 26-yard line with 4 seconds left. Tyrod Taylor threw an interception, but I thought the game was only close because of Tyrod Taylor. I don't know how you can go back to Tommy DeVito at quarterback. I don't know what his future is. The way we've seen people get cut in the NFL, like Bailey Zappi got cut by the Patriots, then a couple weeks later is now their starting quarterback again. So it felt heartless when Bailey Zappi got cut. I could see a world where the sideshow that is Tommy DeVito, the chicken cutlets, all the stuff going on off the field, the drama, I could see him getting cut by the Giants simply to avoid distraction, even if he's fun and exciting and interesting for the fan base in Jersey. Now, one thing worth noting, I think that we got to give some respect to Philly running back DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift had 20 carries for 92 yards and a touchdown. Philly won, but again, I really am surprised at how close it was at the end. It came down to the final play. I thought for sure Philly was going to obliterate the Giants, and they were in the first half, 20-3 at halftime. But then Tyrod Taylor happened and brought him back and made it interesting. So thank you, Tyrod Taylor, for making me sitting on my couch a little more interesting on the day. On Sunday Night Football, the Patriots beat Denver 26-23. The outcome of this game was all bad. Everything about this outcome was bad. The Patriots winning ruined their chances of having a number 1 overall pick. I think it's still technically possible that the Patriots could have the number 1 pick, but it's very, very unlikely now. And Denver losing to the Patriots basically made it impossible for the Patriots to for Denver to make a playoff game. Still possible technically, but they are the worst team that still has a chance to make a playoff game in the AFC. So Denver should have won. The Patriots should have lost. Instead, the reverse happened. No one wins here. It's very weird. Like, what a weird and bad outcome for everybody. The Patriots could have used a number 1 pick. Denver could have used a playoff game. The only good thing about this game was that I really like the Denver Broncos all orange color rush jerseys. Cool orange on orange jersey on orange pants, white helmet. I thought it looked really cool. But I don't know, man. Week 7, I watched Mac Jones have what I thought was, it's ingrained in my memory, what I thought was the best performance by a Patriots quarterback all year. Mac Jones was 25 for 30 passing at 270 yards, I believe, 2 touchdowns. Bailey Zappi got pretty dang close to what Mac Jones did week 7. By the way, the Mac Jones stats are not in my notes, so if anyone wants to look at them, I believe Mac Jones had 270 yards, was 25 for 30 passing with 2 touchdowns. Someone look that up because I'll do it. I think I'm right. I know. I'll leave it to you guys. Have fun researching that. I do have Bailey Zappi's numbers in front of me. Bailey Zappi was 25 for 33 passing, had 256 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but a fumble that got taken for a touchdown. So I thought Mac Jones week 7 was better than Bailey Zappi in this past weekend. But Bailey Zappi was pretty dang good and beat the Denver Broncos on Sunday Night Football. Miami beat Dallas 22-20. And basically for Miami, it's their first win over a really good team all year long. Let's go through. I talk about every week the kind of storyline with the Dolphins. They beat the Chargers, the Patriots, the Broncos, the Giants, Carolina, New England, the Raiders, the Jets, Washington, the Jets again. First good win of the year, Miami beat Dallas. Wow. But here are the losses for Miami. Buffalo, Philly, Kansas City, Tennessee. This is, again, the first win over a really good football team all year, in my opinion, for the Miami Dolphins. They won 22-20. Next week, they play at Baltimore at the end of the year against Buffalo in Miami. Interesting stuff, man. By the way, here is how Miami got 22 points on the day. It's very weird. They had 5 field goals and a touchdown. So 5 field goals, that's 3 times 5, 15 points, plus 7 with a touchdown and an extra point. What a weird way to get 22 points on the board. Tua completed 9 passes to 9 different receivers, and Tyreek Hill had 9 catches for 99 yards. I thought it was a great game for Tua and the Dolphins. The game was fun all around. Dallas took a lead with a minute left by 1 point. Sorry, with 3 minutes left, Dallas took a 1-point lead. And then Tua put together a game-winning field goal drive in the final 3 minutes of the game, and I loved it. I love Tua. I love watching him win. And I guess technically, the Dolphins are one of the best teams in the AFC. The Dallas Cowboys are one of the best teams in the NFC. Theoretically, this could be a Super Bowl preview. I don't think either team is going to get to the Super Bowl. I don't know. Maybe it's possible. It's possible. The right things can happen, and we get the Miami Dolphins against the Dallas Cowboys in a Super Bowl. And so if this is, in fact, round 1 of 2, Miami got round 1. It's worth noting, by the way, that Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, technically the fumble goes on Dak. It was on a handoff, but the reason why the fumble goes to Dak partially is because that's how it got counted. But also, when a quarterback is handing off a football, your coaches tell you you're responsible for the mesh with the running back. If the handoff goes poorly, it's on the quarterback whose sole responsibility is to make sure the running back has the football. It's on the running back to worry about where he's going. First and goal from the 1-yard line, first drive of the game for the Dallas Cowboys, the ball hits the turf. technically that's a fumble for Dak, and that's the difference in the game. They score there, they win. So in a really close game where they lost, I think you could argue Dak Prescott had the key mistake that led to them losing, or at least cost them a touchdown in a game where the Cowboys lost by 2. Chicago beat Arizona 27-16 on Sunday, and the game was not quite what I hoped it would be. We had Kyler Murray playing against Justin Fields, 2 dynamic, fun quarterbacks, and Arizona never led the entire game. Chicago led 21-7 at halftime. Justin Fields had 2 touchdowns. He ran for 1, he threw 1. Justin Fields ran for 97 yards, threw for 170. I do want to say, I love watching Justin Fields play. Even if Kyler Murray didn't really run around and challenge Chicago like I hoped he would. When Chicago does inevitably get the number 1 pick from the Carolina Panthers, I'm really, really hoping that Chicago uses the first overall pick and then their own pick to build around Justin Fields. And I would go a step further and fire the head coach. Fire Matt Eberflus, bring in an offensive head coach, really build around Justin Fields in many ways, get him an offensive coach, get him an offensive lineman, draft a good receiver, build around Justin Fields because, man, he can do some really special stuff. And I so strongly believe if you get Justin Fields the right pieces around him, you're going to have, I don't know if he's an MVP candidate. I don't know if he's going to win a Super Bowl. But you're going to sell a lot of tickets and be really competitive and really interesting. And at this point for the Chicago Bears, I think they should be happy with that. If you can get a team that wins and is competitive and high scoring and fun, which is what I think can absolutely happen with Justin Fields, with a good coach and good offensive weapons around him. And then you know what? Maybe he improves and does become a quarterback who looks like he can win a Super Bowl and win an NFL MVP and stuff like that. But I just think it's almost criminal, the lack of support Justin Fields has gotten in Chicago. And if they replace him rather than support him, it's wild to me. By the way, if you replace Justin Fields, you got to trade him away for something. I think I guess what I'm trying to say is this. You got to build around a young quarterback. You already got a young quarterback to build around him. If you draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall, then you got to use your other pick in the first round to draft an offensive lineman. And then you're not going to trade Justin Fields for a great receiver. Build around Justin Fields to get the most of the draft capital you have available rather than drafting Caleb Williams. That's just my 2 cents. I think maybe you trade down if that happens, because if you really have Caleb Williams at the number 1 pick and you don't want him because you got Justin Fields, I think you trade down and get another big haul from whoever can offer the most draft picks. And I just am really, really begging Chicago, please, please, please build around Justin Fields. I got this thing. My nose is, I feel like I've got a thing in my nose, but I don't. It's killing me. I think what happened, I picked a hair, like a really long hair from my nose, and now a new hair is starting to become, is growing in the inside of my nose, and it is just, it's driving me crazy right now. Let's talk about Tampa. Tampa beat the Jaguars 30-12 on Sunday. It was a dominating win for the Buccaneers. They led 20-0 at halftime. Baker Mayfield, the Buccaneers quarterback, had 2 more touchdowns. Tampa now has a true 1-game lead in the NFC South in their division. Their race to win that division, the NFC South. I am rooting so hard for Tampa. I want to see the Buccaneers win that division. They were once 4-7. They've won 4 in a row. Now they are 8-7. And I want to see Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers win the NFC South. By the way, the Jaguars are in a really bad spot right now. First of all, the Jaguars' young quarterback Trevor Lawrence is already playing with a high ankle sprain. Then down 30-6 in the fourth quarter, he gets hurt. Now he's got a shoulder injury. It's a sprained shoulder. And so the Jaguars, who started the year 8-3, have lost 4 games in a row. They're now 8-7. They're tied with Indy and Houston in their division at 8-7. Their quarterback is hurt, may not play next week. Things are not good right now in Jacksonville. And we might see a Jaguars team who doesn't even win their division to make a playoff game because of Trevor Lawrence being banged up, because of a lot of stuff happening early in the year. I think it's fine. I think what you really got to do this year for the Jaguars always is going to end with a loss. They're not a Super Bowl contender this year. So no matter what, if you You lose the division, you don't make a playoff game, I think it's fine because everything about the Jaguars this year has told me they got to build for next year. If they want to be a Super Bowl contender, they got to keep drafting, get another pass rusher, get another weapon on offense. They got to continue to build around their young quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. But he's got a sprained right AC joint on his throwing shoulder. That's not good at all. And if you're a Jaguars fan, I would be concerned, man. It's not great. They play Carolina next week. Thankfully, that's a team that you can beat even without Trevor Lawrence, I believe. The end of the year with Tennessee. So I think it's possible that the Jaguars finish the year 2-0. But you got to beat a Carolina Panthers team that's really competitive and been playing good football the last 2 weeks. And you might not have your quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Green Bay beat Carolina. Green Bay beat Carolina 33-30. It was a great game, man. The game came down to the final minute. Green Bay hit a field goal with 19 seconds left to take the lead and win. But you got to give a shout out to the losing quarterback, Bryce Young. Bryce Young, this rookie quarterback, number 1 pick in Carolina. 23 for 36 passing, had 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers on the day. And at the same time, while I love what Bryce Young did, a lot of respect's got to go to Jordan Love, the young quarterback in Green Bay. Dude made some really big throws and put together the game-winning drive in the fourth quarter. I don't know, man. To me, in the second half of this year, Jordan Love has really solidified himself as the quarterback who should be the Packers quarterback next year. And I don't know, man. I think Jordan Love is awesome. I really like him. He's growing and improving slowly and steadily. And I think Jordan Love's it, man. I think the benefit of him struggling a little bit early in the year means you can re-sign him for less money. So I'm really interested in Jordan Love. I think he looks like the Packers' future at quarterback, and he's getting better as the year goes on. By the way, shout out to Packers running back Aaron Jones. 21 carries, 127 yards. What a day for him. Seattle beat Tennessee 20-17. Seattle currently is the number 7 seed in the NFC. Good for them. They would be a playoff team if the playoffs started today. Great for Seattle. Who does Seattle end the year with? They got 2 games left. Seattle plays in the final 2 games of the year. They play Pittsburgh. They host Pittsburgh. Then they play at Arizona. 2 games those are very winnable games for Seattle. They're a playoff team right now. If they win out, go 2-0. They beat Pittsburgh and Seattle. Then they beat Arizona on the road. Seattle will be a playoff team, and they look like one right now. The Jets beat Washington 30-28. Man, I don't know. Trevor Siemian played quarterback for the Jets, which could not be less compelling if you wanted it to be. And the sad part of this game to me was that Washington Commanders quarterback Sam Howell got benched. He started the day 6 for 22 passing, had 56 yards, and not 1, but 2 interceptions on the day. It was painful and difficult to watch. And it's painful because I think Sam Howell could be the future at quarterback in Washington. But this one was ugly, and it put a lot of red flags and questions up in the air. So keep your eye on Sam Howell. What happens there? Is he benched? Jacoby Brissett, is he now the starting quarterback in Washington? Does this mean Washington isn't going to build around Sam Howell next year? I don't know. I've got a lot of questions I don't know the answer to, and I don't like that about Washington. Atlanta beat Indy 29-10. We hate this because it's giving Atlanta false hope, and they may keep their head coach after this year. So I want Atlanta to lose every game the rest of the year so they fire Arthur Smith, move on, get a better coach and a better quarterback. If they hold on to Arthur Smith, to me, that's fool's gold and a bad idea. They play at Chicago and then at New Orleans to end the year. Technically, Atlanta's still in a playoff race. They still could win their division if Tampa falls apart. But I didn't like watching Atlanta beat Indy on Sunday. And by the way, my boy Gardner Minshew had a rough game. Quarterback for the Colts. Sacked 6 times, 1 interception, no touchdowns. I hated what I saw watching Atlanta beat Indy on Sunday. And then finally, last game we haven't talked about yet from this past weekend in the NFL. Detroit beat Minnesota 30-24. And this one is a really, really big deal. Detroit has clinched the NFC North title for the first time in 30 years. Oh my goodness. It's very, very cool. By the way, remember Jared Goff got replaced by Matthew Stafford. The Rams traded Jared Goff to Detroit, shipped him off to no man's land to bring in Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford does what Jared Goff could not do in LA. Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl, he lost to the Patriots. Matthew Stafford went to a Super Bowl with the Rams, and he won But guess who got the last laugh? Jared Goff did the one thing Matthew Stafford never could do in Detroit. He won the Lions their division. And I don't know, man. I think it's really interesting. You could actually, I think, really confidently say that both the Rams and the Lions won that trade. The Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford trade worked out for everybody involved. And pretty rare and very cool to say. By the way, if the playoffs started today, guess what game we would get in the wild card round? We would have the LA Rams on the road against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. So Matthew Stafford playing a game against his former team in his former city against the Lions. And Jared Goff will play the team who traded him away, the team and the coach who got rid of him in a playoff game. It's awesome, man. I want to say I am so happy for Detroit Lions fans. Like their team is, I want to say actually good. They're 11-4, which you don't do by accident. However, I will say when you look at the Lions' schedule, they've played a lot of bad and mediocre teams. Like they barely beat Kansas City week 1. They played a lot of like Minnesota without their quarterback. The Packers they have a losing record. The Bears, like that's their division, I know, but I haven't seen a lot of impressive victories for the Detroit Lions this year. And actually, to be honest, when they played the Ravens, they got annihilated. So I think it's very fair to be happy for the Lions, but also skeptical of how far they can go down the stretch in the playoffs. Like when they play when Detroit plays Dallas or Philly or the 49ers, I'm worried about that playoff game. I'm worried Detroit is going to get blown out and have kind of an ugly game there. So we'll see. I'm hoping. I would love more than anything to see Detroit, win a Super Bowl. That'd be unbelievable. But I will say, them making a playoff game at all is still way beyond what anyone expected. I think actually that's not true. I expected that, but it's been so long that you have to just be happy for the Lions, no matter what happens from here on out. But they're 11-4. Technically, they're tied with the 49ers and the Eagles at 11-4. They could still even get the number one seed in the NFC. So we'll see what happens, but I got my eye on Detroit. What happens when they play a really good football team again like they did against the Ravens? Do they win? Do they get embarrassed? I don't know. I think it's fair to be skeptical of Detroit, despite loving them and hoping to see them win a Super Bowl. I think that'd be incredible. Before we get into next week in the NFL Week 17, I do want to acknowledge on Monday, we have the college football playoff games. Monday, New Year's Day, we have Alabama, number 4 overall, Alabama playing number 1 Michigan in the Rose Bowl. That'll be incredible. Can't wait for that. And then after that, we've got number 3 Texas playing number 2 Washington in New Orleans. I cannot wait, man. The college football playoff, Monday, January 1st, coming up this coming Monday. You shouldn't do anything on New Year's Day. There's no NFL games. They intentionally said no Monday Night Football. Get out of the way of college football. We got 2 games on New Year's Day, which to me, I mean, there's other games, there's other bowl games that I don't really care about. To me, I'm like, wow, okay. 2 football games, Alabama, Michigan, Texas, Washington. That's not too much to watch. I can watch both back to back and feel like I've got still part of my day left. I don't know. I really, really am excited for Monday on New Year's watching 2 incredible football teams. And, man, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to watch the college football playoff on Monday. Next week is NFL Week 17. And it starts bright and early. Thursday Night Football, you've got the Jets against the Browns. Joe Flacco and the 10-5 Cleveland Browns, who are trying to not only make a playoff game, but maybe even win the number 1 seed in the AFC against a really good Jets defense and a team that Joe Flacco knows intimately, because Joe Flacco was once the backup quarterback of the Jets behind Zach Wilson. It'll be interesting. It'll be excited. Joe Flacco said, I got no ill will against the Jets, but I'm rooting hard for Joe Flacco here because I want to see the Cleveland Browns do something really special and amazing in a playoff run. So, Jets, Browns, Thursday Night Football. It's going to be fun and exciting. I really didn't realize we still had more Thursday night games coming up because I know towards the end of the year, Thursday night tends to dry up. We don't get a lot of Thursday night games. I am so glad to see one more time the Thursday Night Football crew in a really interesting game. Joe Flacco against the Jets. It's going to be interesting and fun. Cannot wait. On Saturday, we've got a opportunity to watch the Detroit Lions play a really good football team, the Dallas Cowboys. I remember I just said the Detroit Lions haven't played a lot of great teams this year. Let's go rattle through. Seattle, Atlanta. Seattle they lost to beat. So Detroit lost to Seattle. They beat Kansas City by 1, a struggling Chiefs team. Atlanta, Green Bay, Carolina, Tampa. They got obliterated by Baltimore. They beat the Raiders, the Chargers, the Bears. They lost to Green Bay. They lost to Chicago. They beat New Orleans, Denver, and Minnesota. I would say, man, the Detroit Lions have played not really much of anyone that's very good other than Baltimore, they got obliterated by. So the one time all year the Lions have played a really good football team, they got embarrassed. We get to see another game against a really good football team, the Dallas Cowboys here. How do they handle that? Game is at Dallas on Saturday. I am so interested to see what happens with the Detroit Lions on the road in Dallas on Saturday. How do they handle? How do they play a really good team? To me, emotionally, if the Lions take care of business and win, close or not, I don't care if they blow them out. If they win, emotionally, I'm going to feel a lot better about the Lions' playoff run if they can win up front and take care of business against a really good Dallas Cowboys team. I'm leaning really close to my TV on Saturday. I cannot wait to see what happens on Saturday. That's the day before New Year's Eve between the Lions and the Cowboys. On Sunday, the best game on Sunday by far to me, you've got the Dolphins playing the Ravens. The Dolphins are another team I've often criticized. They haven't played much of anybody and won this year. What's going to happen when the Dolphins play the number 1 team in the AFC on Sunday? I think it's going to be interesting. Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, great matchup, a lot of fun. Cannot wait for this one. I think that's the game of the week in the NFL this weekend. Saturday is great, Lions, Cowboys, and then Sunday, Dolphins, Ravens. Those are the 2 best games in my head all weekend in the NFL. Then you got the Colts against the Raiders. Colts are fighting to win their division. The Raiders are fighting to keep their head coach employed. Antonio Pierce, interim head coach, trying to make a name for himself and stay on as a Raiders head coach. Great storylines there. Colts, Raiders. It's going to be a really impactful, meaningful game on Sunday. The Rams play the Giants. Why does this game matter? Do I care about the Giants? No, not at all. But I want to see the Rams make a playoff game. They're 8-7. 9-7 helps them make a playoff game even more. I'm rooting for the Rams here. I want to see the Rams beat the Giants on Sunday. Saints at Tampa. What have I said for like weeks and weeks now? I really want to see the Saints make a change with their head coach. The only coach-quarterback combination I feel good about in the NFC South is Tampa with Baker Mayfield, and I really want to see Baker stay. I want to see Baker win. I'm rooting hard for Tampa to beat the Saints at home on Sunday. The Steelers play on the road at Seattle. The Pittsburgh Steelers right now have a winning record. They are 8-7. But they got 2 games left. They play on the road at Seattle, which is never an easy place to win. No matter what happens, it's loud, it's wild, got playoff implications. Pittsburgh plays at Seattle. Then week 18, they play at Baltimore. Even though the Steelers are 8-7, their streak of having consecutive winning seasons under Mike Tomlin is still at risk because I think they could end the year with 2 losses. Really, really interesting game on Sunday. Steelers at Seattle, and Seattle's fighting hard. They're the number 7 seed right now in the NFC. Really, really meaningful game in Seattle on Sunday between Pittsburgh and Seattle. The Bengals play at Kansas City. Similar story to Pittsburgh. The Bengals are fighting hard to make a playoff appearance. Right now, the Bengals are 8-7. Their final 2 games are against Kansas City at Kansas City, and then the Cleveland Browns. 2 really tough games. I don't have a lot of confidence that the Bengals are going to make a playoff game. Still, though, we could still have a fun, competitive, interesting game. Bengals quarterback Jake Browning had a bad game on Sunday, but was it Sunday? I think they actually played Saturday. Don't ask me. I think they played Saturday. Regardless, the Bengals playing at Kansas City against a good defense. Jake Browning had 3 interceptions, but he didn't look awful. He had 3 bad plays, but I thought had a lot of yards, had a lot of completed passes, looked really good for most of the game other than the couple mistakes. So I think the Bengals have a shot against Kansas City, especially given Kansas City's struggles on offense. And when you understand how good the Bengals defense is, I think that's actually like a very compelling, interesting game. Bengals at Kansas City on Sunday. It's going to be fascinating. The Patriots play Buffalo. Gosh, man, I really hope the Patriots lose because I want to see them have a shot to have a higher draft pick. And I want to see the Bills win because I want to see the Bills make a playoff game because the Bills are going to provide a better playoff game than other teams would in the AFC. So rooting hard for the Bills there. The Falcons play Chicago. Rooting hard for Chicago. I want to see the Atlanta Falcons go splat to end the year. I want to see Arthur Smith get fired in Atlanta. No hard feelings. I think they deserve a better coach and a better quarterback, and I don't like mediocre. So let's bring in someone else, and I want to see Chicago and Justin Fields take care of business against Atlanta on Sunday. Cardinals play Philly. They got no shot, right? Arizona's not going to beat Philadelphia, and let's just leave it there. I would be shocked if the Arizona Cardinals took down Philly on Sunday. The Panthers play the Jaguars. Really meaningful game here. Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers have been playing, I don't know if good football is the right word, but competitive football. They really are fighting hard. Bryce Young gets better every week. They almost beat Green Bay on Sunday. And they're playing a Jaguars team that most likely is not going to have their quarterback Trevor Lawrence on Sunday. Panthers-Jaguars on Sunday is really, really interesting. And the Jaguars are fighting hard to try to win their division. If they lose, they will likely be behind either Houston or Indy, if not both. So it's a must-win game for the Jaguars, probably without their quarterback, against a Panthers team that is trending upward and getting better every week. What's going to happen there, I have no idea, but I am fascinated to find out. Tennessee plays Houston. I think C.J. Stroud's going to be back, which means we're going to get C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback, against Will Levis, another rookie quarterback on Sunday. That'll be fun and interesting. Although, is Will Levis healthy? Will Levis. Because I know Ryan Tannehill just played. Is Will Levis? He's going to try to go. So he's going to try to get back in time for Sunday's game. We might get Will Levis against C.J. Stroud. We also might get Case Keenum against Ryan Tannehill. So that game is a hold. Do you watch it or not? Find out who the quarterbacks are, then decide if you're going to watch that game on Sunday. The Chargers play Denver. It's too little too late. Denver is probably eliminated from the playoffs. They're not technically eliminated yet, but losing to the Patriots on Sunday Night Football really cost them. The Chargers don't have a head coach. Got nothing to lose, but they probably hate their division rival. And I don't know. I once I saw the Denver Broncos lose on Sunday Night Football to the Patriots, I gave up on their year and said, that's a shame. They're not going to make a playoff game, and I no longer care. And then on Sunday Night Football, technically Minnesota is still fighting to make a playoff game, which is weird and surprising, but true. Without Kirk Cousins, they're still kind of in the mix. But I frankly, I couldn't care less. New Year's Eve, Sunday Night Football, Packers, Minnesota. I'm actually glad it's not a very good game because I want to do other stuff with my Christmas Eve or my New Year's Eve. And so Sunday Night Football, Packers against Minnesota. If you really have nothing going on, I guess you watch that game, but I don't think either team is a playoff team. Jordan Love is good. He's actually getting better, but you want to watch Nick Mullins on New Year's Eve instead of hang out with your family. Like, I would encourage you to skip the Sunday Night Football game between the Packers and the Vikings. All right. We got one thing left to do today. We still got to answer questions from Patreon. Although I want to say I am really hungry. Like, my stomach is growling. I am distracted by it. It's wild. So I'm going to get through this. But I need you to know I'm hungry. And my stomach is leading my mind to wander. I'm like, man, what do I want to eat? I have no idea. I have no idea. I've got no plans. I think I'm going to say nothing else. Let's just jump in. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. Patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. It's $1 a month. You can donate more if you want to. Please do. It literally does pay my rent. But $1 a month gives you access to submit questions on Patreon. Now, my only guarantee, I look at every single question with my eyeballs and I pick the top couple to read on the show. I do not guarantee to read your question on the show. I only guarantee to look at them. But the reality is I read almost every question written in on Patreon, and I try to be really, really generous and read a lot of them and have fun with it. Question number 1 today comes from The Feel Is Real. They write in and say, a lot of people are talking about Brock's, meaning Brock Purdy's stats, and why he should be the NFL MVP this year. But I feel like I'm just not sold. He plays with great anticipation and is really accurate, but I feel like he doesn't have those wow factor plays like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson do. Personally, I'm a Christian McCaffrey guy. If you had to pick one, who would you pick? Well, first of all, I think I would imagine you wrote this question before the Christmas Day game where he threw 4 interceptions to the Ravens. So I think Brock Purdy now is out as a MVP candidate, and we're getting fewer and fewer. It's pretty much down to Lamar Jackson or Christian McCaffrey. I am so sick of this being a quarterback award, and Lamar Jackson's had a great year. He's awesome. But he's not head and shoulders better than any other quarterback. So let's give it to Christian McCaffrey. I really want to see. I know that's not great logic, maybe. Like, I wish I had an argument like, here's why Christian McCaffrey's had the best year, but he's killing it. He's receiving, he's running, he's doing great stuff, and I want to see someone other than a quarterback win the NFL MVP, because I've always said for years, like, we really need to have separate awards. A quarterback award, a running back award, a receiver award, a tight end award. Give one to the best player at each position every year, rather than just having this quarterback award that every 10 years goes to a player other than a quarterback. It's weird to me. I'm just really... It's weird how NFL MVP really just means who's everyone's favorite quarterback every year. Colin writes in with a really compelling, really important question. This is a question that everyone has to think about at least once in their lifetime. You have to. And then when the moment comes, you got to be prepared. So I got to prepare right now to have an answer ready if this ever does happen to me. But Colin says, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? So a duck the size of a horse, or really tiny horses the size of a duck. I would rather fight 100 duck-sized horses because I think I could win that fight. I'm afraid of the duck that's the size of a horse because of how big the mouth would be. The bill, like that big chomper, the bill would be horrifying. I don't want to be anywhere near. Plus, think about it. Like, ducks are kind of incredible. They're boats. They can walk on land. They can fly like a jet plane. I think in a weird way, if I could be any animal or any bird, I'd want to be a duck, because the ducks, they float like a boat. They're very water resistant. They can fly, and they can run around on land. They're air, land, and sea. They are all levels of the military at once. A massive duck is actually kind of horrifying if you think about it too long. And how big would those eggs be? Oh, man. How good would the meat be? Probably really good. Although duck meat, I've always thought, I've had duck once, and maybe it was cooked poorly. But the people I was with also agreed, like, hey, duck is it's just like a crappier version of chicken. You're going to get better. Why have shitty chicken when you can have real chicken? Duck meat, never that great. I would not want to fight a horse-sized duck. I would rather fight a bunch of horses that are tiny the size of a duck, because I could just kick them and get a baseball bat and probably win. I would feel way more threatened by a giant duck than a bunch of really small horses. Fair enough? Okay. Joshua says, of the teams who are currently in last place in their division, which ones should fire their head coach? So the Bengals are last in the AFC North. They're 8-7. They're nearly a playoff team. They should not fire their coach. He's great. The Patriots are 4-11. They're last in the AFC East. I think it might be time to part ways with Bill Belichick. I'm very comfortable with that. I think the Patriots fans feel that way. I think Bill Belichick might even feel that way. I'd probably part ways with Bill Belichick. The Titans are 5-10. I wouldn't fire Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel's awesome. He had his hands tied to the bad roster this year. But if Mike Vrabel does get fired, he will not be available for very long. He will be picked up very quickly by another team, maybe even New England. The Chargers are 5-10. They already fired their head coach, so that one's already a bust. The Washington Commanders are 4-11. They're last in the NFC East. They should fire Ron Rivera. I believe they will after the year. They're just being classy and waiting until the year is over. The Bears are 6-9. They're last in the NFC North. Fired, out of there. Get rid of Matt Eberflus. Nothing against him, but you need a coach who can take advantage of Justin Fields and be an offensive genius. That's what I want. So Chicago should fire their coach. Arizona's 3-12 in the NFC West, but they're year one with Jonathan Gannon. He's done some good stuff. I don't see a reason to fire Jonathan Gannon. Didn't have a quarterback for most of the year. You know what? Let's keep Jonathan Gannon in Arizona. Then you go to the NFC South, where Carolina's 2-13. They already fired their coach, Frank Reich. The Saints are 7-8. The Falcons are 7-8, and Tampa's 8-7. I would fire Arthur Smith in Atlanta, and I would fire Dennis Allen in New Orleans. Get a coach in New Orleans who can take advantage of Derek Carr. I think Ben Johnson, that offensive coordinator in Detroit, would be an incredible head coach with Derek Carr in New Orleans. And then, man, such not a fan of Arthur Smith's philosophy when it comes to coaching, how he handles quarterbacks, his play design, his philosophy running the football, his lack of using their first-round picks. Everything about Arthur Smith drives me crazy. He's an offensive coach with a terrible offense. What are you doing? The thing you're supposed to be good at isn't working, so what are you employed for? I think I'm an Arthur Smith hater, actually. I don't like saying that. I don't like hating anybody, but I am not a fan of Arthur Smith. He's urgently should get fired in Atlanta, in my opinion. But he just won 29-10 over Indy, which... Fool's gold, baby. Don't keep Arthur Smith in Atlanta. I think it's a bad idea. I wouldn't keep him, but I'm worried they're going to get fooled in Atlanta into keeping Arthur Smith. Adam writes in and says, we are approaching the end of the NFL regular season, and oh my goodness, has it been fun. That being said, this was not the year I expected. I thought we would see a lot of heavyweights in the AFC, but the Ravens seem to be the best of the AFC by a decent margin. What has surprised you the most this year? What storylines do you think we didn't get to fully realize? I know I would have loved to hear you cover the Aaron Rodgers-led Jets all year. Gosh, I mean, that's obvious. The Jets with Aaron Rodgers is the biggest missed opportunity of the year by far. 4 plays into the year, snaps his Achilles, doesn't play, and it's coulda, woulda, shoulda, we'll never know. I don't know if it would have worked because the offensive line isn't that great in New York, but I can hope and dream that maybe the Jets would be, I don't know, 10-7, competitive, fighting for a playoff spot. Like, I think they would be, and I think the Jets very well might be like 9-6 right now, given the offensive line, but with a chance to make a playoff game. And Aaron Rodgers is out. I mean, the biggest surprise all year is how many quarterbacks have been injured and out for the year. It's really unbelievable. You know, Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones. I'm looking down through every NFL team. Kirk Cousins. Kyler Murray didn't play a lot of the year. We saw Justin Herbert go down for the year. We saw Trevor Lawrence is banged up. Anthony Richardson, Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow. Like, almost every quarterback you can think of in the NFL has gotten hurt. And it's been really like the only teams at the top of the playoff race are the ones that their quarterback stayed healthy. Like, that really has been a huge factor this year. You know the storyline we didn't get to realize this year that I think would have been really fun? Like, the thing we got robbed of more than anything that would have been really cool. Anthony Richardson was having an incredible rookie year with the Colts, and he got hurt. And we'll never, I'm so sad because it was heading towards like a lot of fun with Anthony Richardson, and then he got hurt, and kids got to learn how to slide and protect himself, but I think other than Aaron Rodgers, I think Anthony Richardson would have been such a fun thing to cover this year. And instead he's been injured and gone, and it's going to be a fun film analysis video of the 4 games he played, I guess, but it's been disappointing for sure to have him leave as early as he did. By the way, I'm realizing now, if you look behind me, my futon is up. Next time we record, there's going to be like nothing in this room. I'm moving. So just relax. It's fine. We'll be okay. But for one episode, it's going to be like Zach probably like leaned up against a wall with like, I don't even know, some kind of desk. I'm sure I'll figure out a desk situation, but don't expect like a bougie nice setup next week. And when it looks like I'm recording from a bunker in Iraq next week, relax. It's okay. It's expected. It's fine. I'll make a joke about it to start the show. We'll do the podcast and then I'll move like the very next day. So it's going to be a whirlwind next week. Yeah. Joe writes in, Joe says, all I got to say is, can we see an unfiltered SOS? More shows where you let it rip with the cuss words. I love that version of you, Zach. It feels more passionate and authentic to me. Fuck yeah, it is. That's really how I talk in real life. I don't intentionally leave out the swear words, but when you're talking about the Cleveland Browns, there's not a lot of chances to cuss, I guess. But yeah, like I actually think I'm comfortable. I used to leave out swear words because if I ever got picked up by a network, I didn't want to have to like change my broadcasting style. I wanted it to be safe for TV. I've given up on that dream, I think. So maybe I'm ready to be like, you know what? Screw it. Fuck it. But I'm heading into the corporate world where I'm getting a real job and have to like, as a plumber, you can get away with a lot of stuff. How you dress, how you talk. In more corporate sales, you kind of got to look good and talk right and appeal to, frankly, stuffy rich people. So I got to be really careful how I talk. So I'm not going to get in the habit of cussing even more than I already do. But look, I got a drink with a guy the other day who listened to the show. Him and his family, they were so nice. I forget his name right now. I'm blanking. Nate from Virginia hit me up. He was in. We went to my favorite bar in Honolulu, the Harbor Pub, which I highly recommend. It's a little dive bar. It's great. It's not a dive bar, but a lot of the bars in Honolulu are like ritzy and upscale and very nice and bright lights and amazing views. The view is horrible. It's like under the basement in the harbor. There's nothing to look at out of the windows. There's like some sailboats you can kind of see from like it's in a basement. So like you get like, you know, a 2-foot window that views out of the sidewalk basically. But it's dark and it's cozy. It's my favorite bar in all of Honolulu. So I got to meet Nate, his brother, and his girlfriend, who I think is someday going to be his fiance. And it was so fun to like talk to Nate. And I think Nate, who's met me in real life, can attest. In real life, I let him fly. I'm not shy about the cuss words at all. But on the show, I got no problem cussing. It just doesn't come naturally anymore to me. So I don't know. We'll see. Joe, yes, unfiltered SOS. Let's do it. I just don't know how to do it yet. Troy says, not really a question, but you were right about the Sam guy on Thursday Night Football. He does talk a lot. Sam Schwartzstein. I'm not going to lie to you guys. When I watch Sam Schwartzstein on Amazon Prime doing Thursday Night Football games, I get offended. I'm like, what the fuck? Why does this guy have a job? And I'm the guy, I'm going into sales now because I can't get a job broadcasting in the NFL. What? I did a broadcast once. I did Washington State against Utah. I've got it, the audio of it on my YouTube channel. You can find it and listen to it. I was fucking really, really good at broadcasting. Doing live games was like natural for me. I loved it. It was fun. I was good at it. Why is Sam Schwartzstein, who does he have dirt on? Like, who does he have a connection? He went to Stanford. Like, does he have like one of the executive's daughters in his basement or something? Like, what is happening? Why does Sam Schwartzstein get a platform? He doesn't seem like a bad person. He just really, really struggles to talk out loud. And that's kind of a problem when you're a broadcaster. What? How is that the guy you put on TV? I have no idea. I'll never understand. He struggles in a broadcasting world. Like I got sent a podcast interview of him once. I haven't listened to it yet, but he was on, I think Bussin' with the Boys or PFT maybe. One of the Barstool Sports, I think he was on. Barstool podcast he was on. And I'm sure he was fine in a real natural conversational way. But when it comes to broadcasting, he's really awkward to listen to. Like his sentences don't flow. It's very uncomfortable. I don't know, man. I should try to interview him. Maybe bury the hatchet. I think I'm too small to interview him. I don't know. But I'd love to talk to Sam Schwartzstein and try to understand what's going on there. Be like, I'll ask him, hey, Sam, like, so whose daughter do you have in your basement? How do you have a job in TV, Sam? And then hear him answer that would be, if I really do get him on the show, I should just say that. Like, how did you get the opportunity to broadcast? Probably the nice way to say that, but what the fuck? Why is he on TV? I don't get it. Who does he know? Who does he have a connection to? Somebody clearly, because I don't know how else you get on TV with his style of broadcasting. Like, what? Randolph. I'm thinking about Christmas too much. Randolph writes in and says, does it bother you that the NFL MVP award nowadays seems to be just a best quarterback award? I get that quarterback is such a valuable position, but then wouldn't it be better to just have awards for the best player at each position, such as best quarterback, best running back, etc.? What are your thoughts? Yes, exactly. Once upon a time, I did the SOS awards for Strong Opinion Sports, and I had trophies and everything. And I had every award for like best defensive end, best corner, best receiver, best whatever, like defensive player of the year. Like I really tried to parse it out because MVP means nothing when it's just quarterbacks every year and no one else gets a shot. I don't know. I think Christian McCaffrey should be MVP, and I hate the way we do MVP, but it's all for marketing and money, and I don't know. I don't trust the process anymore anyway, so who cares? Jake writes in with a long one, but a good one. Jake says, Zaccaroni and cheese in the shower. Horrifying. Do not eat macaroni and cheese in the shower. I hate you. Jake further says, I'd like to make a counterpoint to your, quote, no flexibility in the college football playoffs point. To preface it, I'm way more ingrained in the NFL than college, so I might be way off. But Jake says, while I agree that the college football playoffs would make a lot of extra money by jumping to 6 teams this year, and that would be super exciting for fans, I feel like it would also cause so much damage and outrage, both for the fans and the NCAA. Anyone betting on games would be livid if they bet on Michigan to win it all, but they lost to a sudden number 6 seed Florida State, who wouldn't even have made it into the playoffs based on the rules at the time they placed a bet. Any bets made prior to the added playoff spots would basically be null and void, no matter the outcome, as the rules of the game they're betting on are changing after they've locked in their bets. I'm not a lawyer, but I feel like that means one of two things. Either a lot of refunds from betting apps, which definitely isn't happening, or a lot of lawsuits from angry bettors being mad they got scammed. It reminds me of the Bijan Robinson scandal. Remember, Bijan Robinson was listed as healthy, then didn't play. The whole issue is that people got mad that the rules of the bet they were making changed after they locked in their bets. They were told a player would play, so they bet on him under the impression that the Falcons would be following the rules. Then, after they locked in their bets, the Falcons basically changed the rules last minute by telling bettors one thing, then doing another. People were irate when it happened with one player on a subpar team in the middle of an unimportant season. Imagine if it was several of the biggest college sports programs in the country in the playoffs and the national championship game. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but in my eyes, that's the kind of thing that could seriously jeopardize the integrity of college football in the same way that players betting on games jeopardizes the NFL. Again, while I wish it were possible and agree that it would be a way more fun thing, I just don't think it's viable. Here's where, Jake, I hear you, but I don't give a fuck about bettors. I don't give a flying fuck. If you want to gamble and risk your money, you're taking a risk. I want good football games. I want the best product I can possibly watch on TV. I care way more about a good product to watch than I do about the dudes gambling their money on a gambling app. Now, you're right though. You can't change it because of the implications of lawsuits and people mad and angry. So you are right. It's just unfortunate we're now in a position in the sports world where we're beholden to gambling. That is horrifying and sad. And we're not getting the best thing we possibly could because of gambling money. And how fucking sad is that? Now, Jake says, P.S. Remember last episode I was asked if I could talk to the world, everyone in the world for 5 seconds, what would I say? Jake says, here is a suggestion. For the what would you say to the world in 5 seconds question, I feel like the quote, be curious, not judgmental, fits very well in my opinion. Jake also says, why do people say I slept like a baby when I can't think of many things that sleep worse than babies? Like every parent ever is always complaining about not getting any sleep because babies wake up like every 30 minutes. I agree. I don't want kids, and it sounds horrible. I don't know. I slept like a baby means nothing to me because it means you slept horribly, I guess. I've been sleeping like a baby for 2 months. Deeply Closeted writes in and says, hey, Zach, I was wondering, how do teams deal with coaches or coordinators getting fired mid-season? Matt Canada got fired, for example. Does a replacement coordinator have to come up with a playbook ASAP, or do they have something prepared ahead of time? Do the players have a system to pick up the new game plan quickly, or are they just expected to cram until the next game day? Thanks. Deeply Closeted, let's clear this up. So Matt Canada got fired by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The offense didn't change. It's still the same terminology, same names of formations, same everything. Like the new guy calling plays didn't change the entire offense. It's still the same terms. It's the same formations. It's the same route concepts, all that stuff. It's that the guy game planning is different. So you'll call different plays in different situations rather than having Matt Canada do it. You'll have a different approach. You'll have a different, all kinds of stuff. But what we will, I got a text, it drew me away. But what you will not have, sorry, I'm watching on my monitor, a text popped up and it grabbed my attention. It freaked out and I kept talking, but it was weird. So when you fire an offensive coordinator, the guy who comes in to call plays next doesn't change the entire offense. It changes a strategy. It's a different human being going, what's your idea to attack this defense every week? What players you want to highlight? What ways you want to attack certain coverages? It changes the approach, the play calling, the the ways you attack, but it doesn't change the terminology or the offense top to bottom. Does that make sense? So the players just do what they normally do every week. What's the game plan this week? Okay, let's take the plays we know and then use them in this certain way. So yeah, they don't have to game. You're using a lot of terms like, do they have to cram a new game plan? That's not how it works. Every week you learn a new game plan. The playbook doesn't change though. Like the things you call, the names of things, the formations, the verbiage is all the same, even if you fire your offensive coordinator. Kenny writes in, says, hello, Zach. Do you think January Joe and the Browns have a legitimate shot to win a Super Bowl? Also, the Browns game, also the Patriots game was pretty entertaining. Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir. Kenny, do Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns have a shot at a Super Bowl? Yes, absolutely. They're going to push for a Super Bowl. And I think it's really fun, man. The Ravens are 12-3. The Browns are 10-5. So the Ravens would have to lose out. A lot of stuff would have to happen for the Browns to win their division or be the number one seed. The Browns are still not even confirmed as a playoff team. But I think they're going to be a playoff team. And they're probably the best wildcard team we have in the AFC. I can't wait. I want Browns-Ravens so badly. And so I'm really kind of hoping that somehow Miami can leapfrog Baltimore. And, actually, that's not true. Really what's going to happen, we're going to have, if the playoffs worked out the way they did today, Cleveland will play Jacksonville, probably dominate them. If the Browns do stay as a number 5 seed, they're going to play whoever wins the AFC South. So Houston or Jacksonville or the Colts. The Browns are going to dominate whatever team that is. So the Browns are going to win a playoff game. Then maybe the next week they play Baltimore, or maybe they play them in the AFC title game, which would be incredible. I want an AFC title game of Joe Flacco and the Browns on the road in Baltimore to get into the Super Bowl. Would be so much fun. And I think that's, what an incredible idea. But who in the playoffs in the AFC, who can't Cleveland beat? They can beat Miami for sure. They can beat Kansas City. They can beat Jacksonville. We don't know about Baltimore, but every other team in the AFC playoffs, Cleveland could definitely beat. So Cleveland has a real shot at a Super Bowl, which is crazy and so cool. Justin writes in, says, Dear Zach's eyeballs, Bryce Young led a comeback in Week 16 against the Atlanta Falcons in terrible weather conditions, and in Week 17, he almost led another one with barely any time or timeouts. I understand people might say, well, Week 17 was against the Packers defense, but I don't care because these last 2 games have been huge for a boost of confidence for Bryce Young. I agree. Bryce Young is getting better and better, and I'm starting to feel more and more confident. He was the right pick at number 1 overall. He just wasn't given any support around him. Terrible coach, not a lot of weapons, and the Bryce Young film analysis video is going to be really fun because we get to show his mistakes, the things he did well, the things his team did poorly around him. That's going to be a video at some point. Remember, by having the show happen once a week, it opens up a lot of free time for your boy Zach to do other stuff. I'll have a real job. I can do the show once a week, but I'm hoping that I get to play around with film analysis videos and make a couple this offseason, and it'll be really fun. And that's definitely one of the first ones on the docket for this offseason. Guys, that's all I got today. I love you. I appreciate you. I feel like this episode was shorter. I don't know why, but it was. But either way, I love you. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great, great weekend. And I will see you after New Year's next week. So Happy New Year's. Enjoy it. College football playoff coming up. Ravens, Dolphins, Lions, Cowboys. It's going to be a really fun weekend of football. I think that Raiders-Colts game is really compelling and interesting. Enjoy the weekend of football coming up. Have a great one. I'll talk to you next week. And bam, we are done.